everybody. Your Excellency, Ambassador McCann, esteemed participants of the summit, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tech4Rights Summit 2024. My name is Jovana, and I will be your host for this evening, and I'm honored to be so. We warmly welcome our international participants, our local participants here in Montenegro, and also a few of them tuning in online. The summit is dedicated to exploring how technology can become a force for good, advancing human rights in the digital age. On behalf of MAUC Montenegro, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to the Evening Secretariat and British Embassy Podgorica team for their support in shaping this event and helping us gather this evening. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers who will deliver the welcoming remarks. First, we will hear from Her Excellency Dawn McCann, British Ambassador to Montenegro. Your Excellence, now I invite you to take the stage.
Dame i gospodo, uvaženi gosti, organizatori i učesnici. Čast mi je da vam poželim dobrodošlicu na inauguracioni Summit Tech4Rights. Unapređenje ljudskih prava u digitalno doba. Oduševljena sam što sam danas ovdje na događaju koji istražuju presjek dva najhitnijih pitanja našeg vremena, tehnologije i ljudskih prava. And that's the worst bit over for me. I try always to say something in Montenegrin and always to say some new word, which is the one I stumbled on over today. But actually, the themes we are tackling today, so artificial intelligence, health tech, EdTech, cybersecurity, and the fight against misinformation, are not just technical topics, they're at the heart of our future as societies. And that's the thing that I think a non-tech person like me is absolutely fascinated by. Technology is changing the way we work, we learn, and we communicate. It opens up immense and I think very exciting opportunities, but it of course brings new challenges, particularly when it comes to protecting and promoting human rights. And I think the challenge we face is to find ways to harness technology. Technology won't wait for us because we want it to benefit all people and to ensure that innovation doesn't come at a cost of the things we value, like equality, privacy, and security. The United Kingdom has been at the forefront of innovation and research in artificial intelligence for decades. As some of you may know, the foundations of modern AI can be traced back to British ingenuity. In the 1950s, the British mathematician Alan Turing laid the groundwork for the development of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Turing's pioneering work, especially his famous Turing test to measure a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behaviour, marked the beginning of a new era. The UK was and remains a global leader in the theoretical and practical aspects of AI. Today, the United Kingdom continues to lead the way with institutions like the Alan Turing Institute, which is, as I'm sure you know, a world-renowned centre for the study of AI and its applications in various fields, including healthcare, education, and public policy. But the UK government's also actively engaged in shaping the complex ethical landscape of AI to ensure that technologies are developed and deployed responsibly with public good at its heart. And we are committed to ensuring that AI promotes fairness, reduces inequalities, and contributes to the advancement of society rather than exacerbating problems. Our role as leaders in AI is not only about driving innovation, but also about creating partnerships of global impact, and that brings us here today. Through partnerships like the one between the UK and Montenegro, we can share expertise in technology, but also collaborate on practical solutions that benefit us all. This summit is a fantastic example of that. By bringing together experts from Montenegro, from the region and beyond, we're creating a platform for discussion, knowledge sharing and networking. But more importantly, we're starting new initiatives that will drive real change. This summit is an opportunity to consider how we can integrate technology in ways that advance human rights. So, for example, the role of AI in combating poverty and inequality, and the way we use it to enhance citizen engagement, or how health tech can promote mental health and improve access to healthcare. There's a lot we can do. We must explore how EdTech can bring innovation to education, how cybersecurity can protect the most vulnerable, and how we can fight disinformation that threatens the integrity of our democracies. So at the core of this summit is not just an exchange of ideas, it's also the creation of lasting connections between professionals, policymakers and experts, all of whom are needed to find the best ways forward. This event is also a fantastic example of how Chevening alumni community can play a crucial role in building networks. The Chevening programme, which has supported many of you here today, is not just about gaining academic knowledge, it's about forging links. It's about connections that continue to yield tangible benefits for both individuals and their societies long after graduation. The Chevening Alumni Network is a global community of professionals committed to making a positive difference in their home countries. That makes it very, very special, that ethos, that idea behind it. Many of you here are part of that network. As Chevening alumni, you're already making an impact in your own fields. And we have a phenomenal quality of Chevening alumni here. I am absolutely blown away by the quality and the contribution our alumni make. And the work you're doing today, bringing together people from different sectors and disciplines, is a really good example of the type of collaboration that we want Chevening alumni to be thinking about. Driving forward innovation, protecting values, protecting human rights in a digital age. I'd also like to take this opportunity to commend MALC, the UK Alumni Network here in Montenegro, for their initiative in organising this summit. They're a wonderful example of how the Chevening alumni community can continue to play a key role in strengthening our UK-Montenegro relations and bringing together people to address critical issues that face all of our societies. So as we embark on these discussions over the next couple of days, I encourage all of you not only to learn from one another, but to think about the ways you can collaborate moving forward. So this summit isn't about today, just like your Chevening experiences weren't just about the time you had them. This is about creating lasting solutions for the challenges we all face. It's about building a future where technology serves humanity, promotes equality, and advances human rights. In closing, I'd like to extend my congratulations once again to the organisers and to all of you for your dedication and commitment to this cause. The UK is really proud to support events like this, where innovation and human rights come together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of these discussions and to understanding more about the partnerships you forge here. Hvala vam.
Thank you, Your Excellence. Next, I'm delighted to welcome our Ivana Vujovic, Executive Director of NGO Juventus and a passionate human rights activist. Ivana, the stage is yours.
Okay. Your Excellency, Don McCann, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to address the topic that increasingly shapes the world we live in, the connections between the technology and human rights. Technology, of course, is not only a tool, it has become a vital actor in the protection, promotion, and unfortunately, sometimes also violation of human rights. It is our responsibility, of course, to use it wisely, to channel it towards justice, equality, and dignity for all. In Montenegro, the broad application of modern technologies faces significant challenges due to the lack of essential resources across nearly all sectors. During this conference, we aim to highlight key areas such as education, healthcare, media, cybersecurity, and access to services, and connect it both to the national but also regional and global context, leveraging and extending the Chevening network. One of our main societal tasks is wide absorption of technological improvements and innovations. The hope of this conference is that digital transformation will be accelerated by understanding that well-being of all of us depend on the scope and the technology being used, their quality, sustainability, accessibility, and fairness. One of our biggest problems is the inadequate collection and use of data. Without accurate, timely information, our society remains vulnerable. Public administrations remains largely undigitalized, and digital skills and knowledge are underemphasized in our schools still. However, by improving access and the use of data, we can build better services that protect children at risk of online abuse, support victims of revenge pornography, and prevent its spread, enhance mental health care, improve early cancer diagnostics, or empower neurodivergent individuals. Digital technologies can transform education through gaming, through gamification of learning, microlearning, personalized approach, and broader access to high-quality education. Furthermore, the civil sector, a crucial defender of human rights, remains not connected, actually, mostly, to technological advancements, academia, and the private sector, with some only connected in the area of disinformation, but I would say not in other areas. Yet, there is immense potential for collaboration that can amplify the efforts for all stakeholders. The role of human rights activists and its connection with the new technology is also crucial in fighting against hybrid wars, malign influence, devastating wars in Palestine and Ukraine, refugee crises, and suffering of people, including children and newborns. One of the clearest examples of how technology can advance human rights lies in healthcare. Innovation in healthcare are revolutionizing the fight against cancer at the moment, a disease affecting millions of lives worldwide. Advanced tools like artificial intelligence enabling early detection by analyzing radiological scans or genetic tests. AI can identify subtle changes in tissues that even the most skilled medical professionals might miss. Technology also enhances treatment through the personalized medicine tailored to the patient's genetic profile. It's not only improving the survival rates, but also ensure dignity throughout the treatment process, which is a fundamental human right. Technology serves as a powerful tool against repressive regimes. Platforms like social media have allowed people in authoritarian states to document abuse, share information, and organize peaceful protests. For vulnerable groups such as refugees or marginalized communities, technology offers access to essential services like legal aid, education, healthcare. Blockchain technology, for example, is being used to provide refugees with digital identities, granting them access to resources even without formal documentation in some systems. In the digital age, the right to true is it's vital as the right of free expression is. Disinformation undermines democratic processes, erodes trust in institutions, and endangers human rights. AI-powered tools can swiftly identify and mitigate fake news. However, technology alone cannot solve this problem. Citizens must be educated in the media literacy and critical thinking to defend themselves against this modern form of rights infringements. Technology has become a bridge to those who lack access to traditional education. Online learning platforms like Coursera or Khan Academy enable people from all corners of the world to acquire the skills and knowledge they need for better future. Technology also plays a crucial role in preserving natural resources and combating climate change. Satellites and sensors monitor deforestation, pollution, and climate shifts, enabling governments, but also NGOs, to respond swiftly and efficiently. Technology holds immense potential to enhance human rights, from combating disease and resisting oppressive regimes to preserving our natural resources. But it is not neutral. Its impact depends on how we use it and regulate it. So let this conference be an opportunity to shape at least our individual vision of the future, of which technology not only serves humanity but also empowers it. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ivana. And now I would like to invite and welcome Masha Miladinovic, Chevening alumni and ICT marketing consultant. Masha, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Your Excellency, distinguished representatives of ministries and public sector, representatives of NGOs and international organizations, representatives of academia and the industry, esteemed speakers, dear Chevening alumni and MAUC community, dear participants, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Tech4Rights Summit, a gathering where technology and human rights converge. Allow me first to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the British ambassador, representatives of ministries and esteemed guests from international organizations. Your presence here today underscores the importance of this summit and the shared commitment to addressing the critical intersection of technology and human rights. I would like to express special thanks to the Chevening Secretariat for funding this project and to the British Embassy Podgorica for their invaluable support in guiding, organizing, and amplifying the visibility of the project. Your dedication to fostering the Chevening alumni network and supporting initiatives like this summit, has been instrumental for bringing this to life. As today we stand at the crossroad of rapid technological advancements and the pressing need to ensure the innovation serves the greater good, protecting and promoting the fundamental rights define our humanity. This summit was born out of a vision to create a platform for dialogue, collaboration, and most of all, action. We're here not only to explore how technology impacts our rights, but also to shape the future by fostering ethical practices, equitable access, and transparency in the digital age. The conversation we'll have over the next 2 days are vital. As we delve into topics like digital privacy, AI ethics, freedom of expression online, and access to technology, let us remember that these aren't just abstract concepts. These are deeply personal, affecting how we live, work, communicate, and even dream. Montenegro, a country of rich heritage and vibrant innovation, provides the perfect backdrop for these discussions. It reminds us that even in the smaller emerging markets, we have a crucial role to play in setting the global agenda on tech and rights. To our speakers and panelists, thank you for bringing your expertise with us here today and for your passion for this event. To our attendees, thank you for your curiosity and to your commitment to driving meaningful change. I encourage you to engage fully, to ask questions, to challenge ideas, and to forge connections, which is most important of all. Together, I believe we have the power to ensure that technology doesn't just advance, but advances with purpose and, most of all, humanity at its core. So let us embark on this journey with open minds and a shared determination to create a future where technology uplifts and empowers every individual. Thank you, and let the Tech4Rights Summit begin.
Thank you, Masha, and thank to all our speakers for setting the stage for today's discussion. I have to admit we were so eager to start with the discussion and speeches that we forgot to show the slides, but you must admit it's nicer to see them in person anyway. So, yes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move to our first topic group, human rights. Are we okay with the sound? Okay. This session will consist of 2 note speakers, followed by a panel. Together, we will explore critical questions, including how can we ensure that technology promotes inclusion and equity in our society and society overall? What are the ethical and legal challenges posed by emerging technologies? And how can we close the digital divide and ensure equal access to online rights? This session will not only introduce us to these pressing issues, but also serve as a foundation for the panels to come and speeches to come in the next days. So, let's dive into this thought-provoking topic. To start, we will hear from our 2 keynote speakers that bring exceptional expertise in this field. And then, it is my pleasure to firstly introduce Paola Galvez-Caligros, a tech policy consultant with over a decade of experience specializing in AI ethics, cybersecurity, privacy, and digital rights. She's the founding director of Indonia Lab and UNESCO's lead national expert conducting the AI readiness assessment methodology in Peru. Paola's passion for ethical AI practices and human-centered digital regulation has made her a widely respected speaker at global conferences. Today, she will share her insights on algorithms for equity, advancing human rights in the age of AI. Please join me in welcoming Paola.
Good afternoon, distinguished audience. What does it take to make AI uphold the human rights of all? My interest in thriving equity began early, inspired in part by my grandfather, a judge in the Central Highlands of Peru, who often spoke about the social disparities he witnessed in my country. I went to law school believing that it would equip me with the tools to drive meaningful change in a country with high levels of disparity and inequality, such as Peru, where I'm from. My first year lacked inspiration, though. Many courses seem disconnected from real-world problems. My perspective changed when I began an internship at Microsoft in 2013, and I saw a demonstration video of Seeing AI Prototype. This project, which used AI, helped these people with disparity, with visually impaired disabilities, perceive their surroundings. This technology opened my eyes to the profound potential of artificial intelligence as a catalyst for social good. I was immediately fascinated by the idea of leveraging technology as a force for inclusion, leading me to realize that law and public policy could be useful tools for problem solving. From that moment, my focus shifted towards the intersection of law, technology, and policy. And also, that's why I picked the Master of Public Policy at the University of Oxford, that I did it thanks to the Chevening Scholarship. My commitment to transforming Peru into a more inclusive and innovative place for everyone through a human-centric regulation started back then, and I was on the path that led me here and hopefully beyond. After working for 8 years in the private sector, the Peruvian government invited me to assist with their digital transformation and AI policy design process. Some people told me I would be frustrated and that the public sector bureaucracy would disappoint me. However, I found an opportunity to innovate and shed light on disruptive ways to govern. As a firm advocate for participatory bottom-up processes, I formed a multi-stakeholder committee, an exercise that reinforced my conviction that safeguarding human rights must be at the heart of AI governance. Upholding these rights and establishing clear ethical guardrails for AI is a collective responsibility that extends beyond governments. No single entity can bear this burden only. Collaboration across diverse stakeholders is not just important, it is essential to preventing the erosion of fundamental rights in the face of rapid technological change. I want to share with you my deepest concerns about the evolution of AI, and more importantly, how we can act now to prevent these fears from becoming reality. Human rights are at stake. That's what I think. I see generative AI producing synthetic content riddled with biases and misinformation, fueling distrust and eroding democratic processes. Large language models, while powerful, often amplifying the polarization and marginalizing underrepresented voices. Poorly designed AI-powered applications fail to integrate assistive technologies, perpetuating barriers for people with disabilities and widening existing inequities. But it isn't just that. Facial recognition technologies are being deployed without consent, undermining privacy and disproportionately targeting vulnerable populations, such as minorities and activists. Algorithmic decision-making systems in areas like human resources, healthcare, and law enforcement risk codifying systemic discrimination and denying individuals equal opportunities. These are not hypothetical scenarios, unfortunately. They're happening now, challenging our commitment to upholding fundamental rights. However, I sincerely believe that we cannot afford not being tech optimists. That's the reality we live, and we're here to change it, right? But to make it a force for good. I do believe AI holds tremendous promise when it is used wisely. Ivana mentioned very good use cases, and I don't want to repeat. But I do believe, in maybe just 2 examples, AI systems break down language barriers. I'm Peruvian. I had the privilege of learning English at a very early age, but not many Peruvians does. Most of my country speak only Spanish, but now they can learn from different programs and courses because of assistive AI technologies. So that's a good thing that technology has brought. Also, the rapid synthesis and analysis of vast amounts of data that AI brings and help researchers like me and some of you here attending this conference. For that reason, I advocate for ethical governance frameworks and AI models that make sure to uphold human rights. I once heard someone say, "That's just the way the world is," when I was telling him how I am frustrated every time I ask ChatGPT to translate my short bio into Spanish, because this technology believes I'm a man. Spanish has feminine and masculine gender, and to this technology, I'm always a man. And I feel discriminated. But I know this is the least of the problems that generative AI is bringing now. Data is the oxygen of AI, and transparency should be at its core. However, the data that is being used to train AI systems is not representative. That's why the results that AI nowadays are being biased and discriminate. It is up to us to shape the future of AI now. It is within our power to create the future where AI serves as a tool to uphold human rights rather than a force of exclusion and harm. To achieve this, we must demand transparency, establish rigorous accountability mechanisms, and include diverse voices in shaping AI governance. And that is meaningful participatory processes, not only having them at a table and then not being accountable on how these opinions were considered. Human rights are not just a consideration, they are a necessity to ensure AI benefits everyone, everywhere. I am going to present here, and I'm sorry that the table moved, but this is a table I did from the Generative AI Governance Report published by WEF this year. And that presents 5 regulatory approaches of artificial intelligence. There is the risk-based approach that many of you may know because the European Union has adopted it and many other countries are following. For instance, Brazil, that you may correct me, Monique, but I think at the moment it has not been approved yet, but it could be the second most comprehensive law in the world regulating artificial intelligence. And they are adopting the risk-based approach, which has challenges and opportunities. I think most of them has. That's why in the table I made sure I put it. And I am happy to share this presentation with you because I know the font is very small. I'm sorry for that, but I'm here to explain you. In this case, the advantage is that it allows the regulatory framework to be more flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances and only putting, let's say, the attention to risks that are high and that we must not permit that it happen. But the challenges are the risk assessment complexity and that it may leave aside harmful conducts. For instance, and this is my personal opinion, immigrants that come are not being protected with this European Union Act. Then we have the human rights-based approach that unfortunately non-regulation has been approved with that. Only, and this is not mandatory, but only a convention of the Council of Europe on AI that, as we know, it's a treaty, it's international law, but how it is applied in the country, and especially how it is applied to private sector, it depends on the country that adheres to it, so that's the challenge. But I advocate for a law that hopefully can have this approach because the scope is not limited. It ensures that AI systems are developed and deployed in ways that respect and uphold human rights. And it should be used with the international human rights law. We're not inventing a wheel here. Then we have the principle-based approach that sets out fundamental principles intended to foster innovation and encourage sharing best practices. We have many examples of this approach. The United States is one, the UK as well, and there is a little sign because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, as the government has mentioned that it's going to be a bill regulating AI, so we don't know yet if that's changing, but at the moment that's a principle-based. Singapore and India are following this approach as well. China follows the rules-based, and it at some point reduces complexity because it proposes a very consistent list of rules, and it's very rigid and high compliance costs. But what happened in China is that the very early beginnings of their industry was not regulated, and as we know, the government has a lot of stake on these companies, so we cannot really say that the laws that they are approving are human rights based. Last but not least is the outcome-based, and a good example of this is Japan, focusing on achieving measurable AI-related outcomes. It's also pro-innovation and letting the industry develop. And as a challenge, I would say that it has limited control over the process. Japan does not want to be so rigid in regulation, but it is working, I can say well, because it's working close to private sector. That's what the government is doing with the industry there, and let's see how it comes. But these are the approaches that we have at the moment. And if I'm presenting this, just to mention, they can overlap. We can have, and if we are here working on AI governance, maybe I would love to ask you if your country is doing a risk-based approach. Let's not leave it, but let's ask for a human rights-based approach as well, because it cannot be aside. Then this is a short graph that I would like to present, because I do believe that we need to pass from AI declarations and all these beautiful UNGA declarations and the AI Safety Summit declaration, the Bletchley Park, and all commitments. But I want these commitments to pass to actions, to convert into actions. So I wrote this 10-step roadmap for nations. some countries may have already done it, for instance, adopted international frameworks for AI because it brings standards when you adhere to these global standards or best practice. For instance, the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI, the OECD principles, the definition of AI should be one. It's so hard to enforce when they have different definitions. And then the formulation and review of national AI policies, because it's different. It's a different thing to say we have a law regulating the use of AI and development and a national strategy, because it means how the country wants their citizens to develop and use this technology, how to leverage all this potential that we've mentioned and to prevent all the risks that we are fearing. But this needs to be with a step 3, which is enhanced transparency and accessibility. All materials related to AI policy must be readily accessible, complete, and accurate to the public. The UK is a great example. Since I don't know how many years you have the gov.uk open and transparent to the public. I hope this can be replicated. Independent oversight is necessary as well. Have an independent agency tasked with overseeing AI development and deployment, because this technology, as we've seen, it's changing rapidly. I don't know, I think in 2022, we didn't know that it can create the videos that we see now, how it's writing scripts and creating these voice deepfakes, right? It's changing so fast that we cannot stay calm when a law is approved. Independent oversight is needed and it ensures compliance and ethical standards, human rights, and the rule of law. 5, I already mentioned it, the comprehensive national AI policy, and all these beautiful policies. I'm a lawyer, I can tell you I'm biased. Policies are necessary, but we don't do anything if we don't invest in skills development. Our population needs to know how to first upskill, because we don't want them to lose their jobs. Some roles are going to be replaced, that's a reality, but we need to upskill these people so that they can shift and start working again in another new role. And also, if we want people to use LLMs, generative AI, make the most out of this ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc., we need to teach them that these technologies make mistakes. They can hallucinate. We cannot do this copy-paste or believe everything we read, and that is critical thinking. So it's not only hard skills, but soft skills that our citizens need to understand and learn. 7th, and promoting gender equity and cultural diversity in AI. Implement policies to address gender and cultural disparities in the field of AI is mandatory. The UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI is the first document that includes a chapter on gender, and we've seen the gender gap exists. In AI, only 3 out of 10 professionals working in the AI field are women. We need to change that, and this is with policies. Targeted support for underrepresented groups. This is out of the script, but I created Digital Girls Peru when I was working in the government, and I faced so much resistance from people in the government telling me, why for girls? We need all the kids to learn AI. And yes, that's true, but we've got this big gap that we need to fill, so this program is for girls. And I fight, and I won. Now, Digital Girls Peru is in 8th edition. So I'm glad I'm very proud to say that at least Peru is working a bit to close this gender gap. Government accountability and safeguards. We know that the government are creating the regulatory frameworks, but they are also users of AI. And citizens, we must know how the government is using it, so we need to mandate public transparency in the deployment of AI by government agencies, including the implementation of safeguards to protect citizens' rights and interests. We all want to have safety in the streets, to walk safety. I mean, I was walking this morning in Montenegro and I felt so safe. Unfortunately, it's not the same when I walk in the streets of Lima. I need to be walking around. I cannot take out my phone. Yes, we want safe. And most of local mayors say, that's why we're doing surveillance with AI. We will catch all. Yes, but let's remember that these AI systems are not only used for this, but also used to prosecute dissidents, activists, journalists. And also, sometimes these systems make mistakes, and they can think people with disabilities that are, how can I say, people that are criminals, right? So before we put in place an AI system, let's run an audit, a human risk assessment, a human rights risk assessment. Last but not least, I'm suggesting to do regulatory sandboxes for AI and environmental sustainability in AI policy. It's so important because we're trying to leverage the AI potential, but it's important to see how AI is impacting our environment as well. Well, the future of human rights, as I've said, are affected by our choices. When it comes to AI, we can just sit on the sidelines. I've mentioned since 2013, I've advocated for an inclusive digital transformation from the private and public sector. Last year, I turned into an independent consultant, collaborating with UNESCO, the OECD, and other organizations. And I also founded Idonia Lab, a nonprofit dedicated to designing and implementing the necessary conditions to make AI benefit all. I do believe that each of us, in the position that we are, whatever we're doing, whatever the career, what we have studied, we can make an impact from our respective roles and change this reality to prevent these fears to become a reality. I'd like to end by asking you, who do you want to be in this journey to shape AI? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paola. We can all agree it was really inspirational, and we can see your passion and dedication to this topic, and that's always lovely to see. Our second keynote speaker is Tamara Strzentic, an internationally recognized expert in government innovation and digital transformation. Without the screen, can you please regulate? Cheers. Okay, we're good. So Tamara is our next keynote speaker. With over 15 years of experience, Tamara has worked with Californian state governors, federal government, on the great groundbreaking digital initiatives. In 2020, as many of you know, she returned to Montenegro to serve as a Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media, where she really championed critical reforms and innovation in public service delivery. Today, she will discuss how tech and emerging technologies can help us closing the digital divide and human rights gap. Please welcome Tamara.
Well, thank you so much. Paula's speeches always are not so informative, but also give me goosebumps. So thank you for that. I'm truly privileged to be sharing the stage with such a fierce women leaders. So thank you for all of that you've shared. And my heart is truly full, not just because I've seen so many of you I haven't seen in a long time, leaders that I've deeply love and respect, but also this is kind of like a full circle moment for me. 10 years ago, Mauk family brought me to speak at one of your convenings, and this was maybe the first opportunity for me to start getting to know some amazing leaders from the community like Vanya, Milovan and others, and start creating bridges between the work that my team was doing in US and the amazing work some of the social impact leaders and public servants here were doing. So just huge thank you to MAUC organizers for making space for everyone to have a seat at the table and for expanding this community tent with diversity of perspectives and voices. All right, our shared purpose to lead in a digital age in a way that honors and advances everyone's rights and leaves no one behind, while very challenging, is, I believe, the most timely and meaningful mission that we all could have gathered around. Throughout my journey as a passionate public servant and bureaucracy hacker, I've had privilege to partner and learn from government leaders across the world. In California state government, open data was the catalyst and tip of a spear to changing how the culture is shaped and how government works. So the small and big wins of our open government movement paved the way, executive order and dedicated budget, enabling us to launch 2 startups, Office of Innovation and Office of Digital Services, and form a dedicated team charged with transforming some of the California's priority policies and services. And then 4 years ago, I got an opportunity of a lifetime after 30 years of the same party rule in Montenegro. As you know, New government was formed. The prime minister was looking to create a non-political technocrat government, and I was asked to join the cabinet. So it was one of the most rewarding experiences, of course, to be able to serve my country and my people. So I picked up the playbooks, tools, and manifestos from US. Though I knew culture might eat strategy for breakfast, I realized that whether it's the 5th largest economy in the world, government of California, or a tiny 500,000 country Mediterranean, problems we are facing are not so unique to us. There's so much more we can learn from one another and borrow from each other instead of reinventing a wheel. Just taking a step back and reflecting on what we're experiencing today, I believe that each of us showed up today here fueled with a deep belief that we can do so much better for the humanity, especially for those that are most vulnerable and underserved, whose rights are at jeopardy. And I was just invited to speak this week at the Moral Leadership Summit in New York, and flipping through the pages of the newest Time magazine cover, and please don't mind me being super blunt and vulnerable here, I was appalled to see that on the front page, the person of the year was image of President Trump. Obviously, you can tell how I'm feeling about him, but it is a self-confessed sexual assaulter. Among all other leaders who actually have put their lives on the line and stuck their necks out to change the world for the better, who could have been on that front cover. One of them is our fierce 19-year-old high school student, Sara Wisic from Montenegro, who, in face of the broken legal and educational system, mustered up a courage to report her professor for verbally harassing her. The protest just started actually an hour ago, and I'm sure many of you all will go and join the people out there when we're done with this tonight. So we see it and feel it sometimes on our own skin. The human rights are in a state of deep crisis everywhere. I thought it would be most meaningful, instead of throwing to all of you a new shiny object AI-powered chatbot, I wanted to share some real practical examples of how my teams in USA and Europe have leveraged methods and tools from the digital era to address these perpetuating inequities. Speaking of the crisis, one of the greatest hacks that my teammates and I have leveraged to radically change how government and our systems works is by not letting a good crisis go to waste. One such famous crisis that radically transformed how government works was healthcare.gov failure. Some of you might have followed. Back in 2013, Obama's administration team introduced the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. This was the president's flagship policy that was marking a significant milestone in healthcare reform after decades of inaccessible, inequitable healthcare services in the US. So just imagine this picture. 500, that's 500 technology vendor organizations worked on this healthcare.gov website. And when it was supposed to be launched, it failed. So that 10 billion IT project horrendously flopped, stood to jeopardize American lives and reputation of our sitting president. That's when Obama pulled a small team of leaders from Google, led by my friend Mikey Dickerson, who stepped in to fix the site, working tirelessly for weeks. Our team tackled not only technical issues, but also process and governance problems, ultimately ensuring the successful Obamacare enrollment. And this led us to standing up 2 centralized delivery units at the head of the White House and at the California State Capitol, in hopes to improve our government's capacity to deliver. One core lesson here is, though, governments have become good at acquiring static software. What we really need to do is acquire in-house capabilities so that we can build that delivery muscle. And now if we look at this in the context of AI, in fear of missing out and a rush to sprinkle this advanced tech AI fairy dust, there is a very real risk that some governments and social impact organizations, especially those that lack sufficient basic delivery capacity, will buy AI tools in ways that are compliant with all of the new guidance, but that fundamentally lack an understanding of the problem, human problem, that we are trying to solve. Technology has not changed our shared mission of service. It has simply just given us new tools. Good government in a digital age is about people, and we have to put them in the center and leave no one behind. There's so much we can steal and borrow from the tech world, but when I'm asked about how do you define innovation, or what is at the core of this digital transformation, flashy word movement, I say it's problem definition. It is tightly defining the problem and understanding of the root causes and underlying issues that people are facing. And while sometimes the right solution is technology, and sometimes it is much simpler than that. Not every problem is solved by an app or a shiny AI chatbot. So I want to shine a light on human-centered and equity-centered communities design, one of the core tenets and practices my teams in US and Europe have grounded our initiatives in. Our work starts by meeting people where they are and co-creating solutions with them and not for them. It is grounded in empathetic listening and humility, powered by multidisciplinary teams that focus on creating a space of psychological safety and uncovering people's real needs and scaling iteratively to test assumptions. We wanted to share these practices with the world, so we co-designed and codified and then open-sourced our equity-centered community design field guide. This is living knowledge platform of methods and tools available for you all to tap into and lean on if you'd like. It's filled with rich insight, and I just wanted to highlight some super quick examples that stem from the honor, heal, and challenge principles and practices from this guide. At the core of the honor principle is meeting people where they are in their journey, co-designing with them and not for them. As an example of this principle, in one of our discovery sprints, we got to learn a lot about hardships of Maria, a single mom with 2 children. Maria was getting used to skipping meals for her kids so that her kids will not go hungry when she heard from her friend about SNAP, the Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So imagine Maria sitting in front of the library desktop, running into bottleneck after bottleneck, as she finds that she's missing most of the required information. After nearly 2 hours spent answering confusing and repetitive questions, she finally hit submit, only to learn weeks later that she did not qualify for the benefits, and her only option is to start over. In order to improve SNAP application experience, we talked to so many people like Maria, mapping out their journey and uncovering a convoluted application process that left many confused and hungry. Through the close observation and interviews with real users, the team identified pain points and simplified policies. We co-designed a new process. We actually included them in the process, people like Maria, that cut down the application time from 2 hours to just 7 minutes. Through automatic transfer of benefits to their accounts, the team ensured marginalized beneficiaries like Maria are prioritized and feel supported by their government. This is where trust is made and what accessible, empathetic, dignified, and human-centered government looks like. The key tenet of HEAL is that empathy plus action equals trust, and that we should try to include community input in decision-making whenever possible. We all had to navigate through COVID, and to all of us, the pandemic has shined a light on how most of our systems we are relying on have been built for an entirely different era. When COVID hit, my team and I were charged with developing COVID-19 website for California, and we did so in 4 days. Our data and research teams have had daily interviews with industry owners like nail salons, restaurants, to understand their key questions and points of confusion. Based on this research and insights from real humans, we updated not just the website, but also our policy guidance several times a day. This site was translated in 12 languages and was written at the 7th grade reading level, making it accessible to those whose English is second language, and even kids. So our daily interviews with real people on the ground would reveal how Californians are feeling, what they feared the most, and all of this data guided our policy decisions. Our team would also brief the governor every day with the most up-to-date data trends and testimonials from some of our most marginalized groups, and he would address those people directly during his briefs, making his 5 p.m. briefings much more warm, personable, and authentic. This is where tech tools and practices leaning on data research, test and learn approach have made a difference, not just in how we delivered services, but also in designing policies and programs that leave no one behind. Many of you have followed in the US a couple of years ago, US Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, the landmark decision that said states could not ban abortion. As soon as this decision was made, Governor Newsom proclaimed to make California a sanctuary for women seeking abortion from all over the USA. As a part of the mission, he charged our team with redesigning a website to promote California as the state's abortion services, listing clinics, linking to financial help for travel and lodging for women from across the US whose state has sanctioned this human right for them. The site was co-designed with the support of the women across the USA who were living in the most conservative states and whose healthcare rights were about to get taken away. We made sure to reach wide and embed their voices and decisions in both California policy, program, and tech solutions surrounding reproductive rights, as well as to make sure that they feel safe once they come to California. Our third equity-centered delivery pillar is challenge. This is in part about challenging preconceived solutions to the problems. We should not simply assume that what we think is the right solution to the problem is actually going to work. And as we are building things, we need to build teams with lived experiences that reflect people that we serve. Those of you who walk the streets of San Francisco know how horrific and pervasive the issue of homelessness is in California. Nearly 200,000 people are affected. They live out on the streets or in the shelter. When trying to dismantle homelessness, our team started by first deeply listening and learning about the lives of people on the streets. This research has revealed the most unexpected insights. We were about to push a big executive order where funding would be spent single-handedly building more housing, but listening, the members of the homeless community illuminated the real issues that kept them down and prevented them from getting that first job. And some of those are the PO address where they could receive their paycheck or communicate with their possible potential employee, a clean suit so they can look representable. But even with the proper training and clothes, they were still getting passed on the job interview because of their teeth. This was one of the illuminating insights that we got. So we put in our budget a big line around dental care, as well as worked with dental providers across the state who volunteered their services for the homeless. This was an example of another non-tech, but meaningful and community-informed solution that has allowed people like George to level up and gave him chance at earning a dignified living. Here's another example of how human-centered design and empathy and action build trust. Upon Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in March of 2022, more than 13,000 Ukrainian refugees fled to Montenegro. As lines of distressed humans were approaching our border, our team was able to provide welcome, comfort, and listen to understand their pain points and needs. We worked with Border Patrol to rapidly streamline action around various issues that emerged. One of those issues which we found in our research was connectivity, so we stocked up the border with laptops, Wi-Fi chargers, and charging stations. In a digital age, we can use data to dive deep and gain better understanding of human issues, but to affect real change, we need to think bigger than bringing tech solutions to to policy problems. And for this transformation to work and take hold, we need a legion of social impact leaders that build with the people and by the people, and radically different approach to social impact and public service organization. One based on multidisciplinary teams, starting with human needs and scaling iteratively to test policy, product, and service assumptions. Organizations must switch from project to product-based delivery and financing, focusing on steady incremental improvements that meet real needs. We lack and need tools for procedural deflation and need to move away from process fetish. These organizational shifts we are driving, often even constrained organizations, present for even constrained organizations powerful force for good, but they're only as good as people behind them. And all this work we are doing is ultimately about people, and it deeply depends on a culture of caring. It depends on each of us leading the charge, modeling the way, and intentionally cultivating the environment, conditions, and culture that tunes into a sense of purpose and elevates superpowers of everyone around us. A culture that co-creates core values and principles that define what we expect from each other and what we aspire to be. A culture that celebrates failures, promotes psychological safety, and empowers everyone to be their authentic selves. A culture that not just welcomes but celebrates diversity, sees feedback as a gift, and discourages managing up, encourages teamwork and servant leadership. creating such cultures requires intentionality, courage, and relentless optimism, which I'm so energized to see a lot in this room today. I want to leave you with a call to action of Rebel Alliance, a non-partisan, open civic community that leverages a network of pro bono technologists to address common systemic challenges facing public servants in the USA and Europe while helping them build that delivery muscle that I was talking about. Our work is grounded in human and equity-centered approach we discussed today. If you'd like to learn more, come and talk to me and my team. They are the corner after this talk. Just one of our most recent efforts, we got a big grant to deliver pro bono trainings on AI, data, cyber design thinking to 100,000 girls, non-binary individuals, but we are also doing pro bono trainings and workshops on AI with public servants, media, journalists, and others. So let's explore tangible ways we can join our forces and create conditions for leadership in digital age that advances human rights and leaves no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Oh, no worries. Thank you really for inspiring speech and for giving us some practical examples, some real life examples and reflections on this divide, digital divide you talked about. And Tamara gave us a lot to think about. Don't you agree? Now we will be proceeding to announced panel discussion, where we will deep dive into issues raised by our two keynote speakers. Moderating the panel is our Ivana Vujovic. I say our because Ivana is Chivning alumni and, as mentioned, the Executive Director of NGO Juventus. You had a chance to hear her today, but I would like to emphasize her extensive experience in the public opinion research and human rights advocacy. So Ivana, welcome to the stage. Thank you. Have yourself seated. And now we will have several amazing ladies here with us today. First one will be joining us online, so I will be sharing some information on their biographies first, and then we will leave them the floor, stage or online space to give short intro what they do currently, and later they will join Ivana in the panel discussion. Can somebody please confirm if we has batteries online? Yes. Online. Oh, perfect. So I would like to introduce the first lady that's going to join Ivana on the panel. Dr. Beatriz Lopez Burke, a Chivning alumni and a fellow at London School of Economics. She specializes in digital politics of truth and is founder of the NGO Words Heal the World. That organization received the Luxembourg Peace Prize for its effort to promote peace. Ms. Lopez, do we hear you? I would kindly ask technical team to show us the Zoom. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Everybody is hearing you and seeing you, so please, the floor is yours. I would say the online floor is yours.
Okay, so I'll share my screen. Thank you so much. So let me just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me just set the timer here. So just 1 second. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be there online. I really wanted to be there in person, but unfortunately I could not fly to Montenegro at this time. Apologies for that. But it's truly a pleasure to be here with you all, talking about a topic that touched me a lot. So today I'm going to talk about digital media and issues of ethnicity, race, gender, and power. Before I start, I apologize because my presentation contains some content that you may find disturbing. I know that previous speakers, they were very focused on strategies to address issues related to digital media and human rights. But my presentation today will be focused on the problems and I would like you to invite you all to adopt a more, how can I say, intersectional approach to these issues related to human rights, and also to go beyond these misconceptions that associate human rights solely with minority groups, as if it was not something that was like related to our lives, related even to our families. So as you will see through this presentation, these issues will come out very explicit. So my presentation has 4 key points. I'm going to explore 3 key ways in which digital media has undermined human rights, and I will use the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a framework to elaborate on these threats. So the key articles that I'm going to focus here are these 5 articles, Article 1, 2, 5, 18, and 26, basically touching upon violations of human rights that undermine the rights of individuals, that also undermine their rights when it comes to their race, color, sex, language, religion, expressions of belief, also rights involving degrading treatment, and also this one here, the 26, related to education, because right now we have digital media used to educate people on how to violate human rights. So the first one, it's based on a research that I conducted for a Brazilian NGO, Think Twice Brazil. You can access this report by scanning the QR code. And the main findings of this research was that I engaged with TikTok for 1 month, and I noticed that the algorithm quickly started recommending to me content with explicit appeals to violence. So almost 20% of the over 1,000 videos recommended by TikTok promoted violence in a certain way. 157 were making explicit appeals to violence, in some cases giving instructions to students on how to perpetrate violent attacks in schools. Some of these videos were even justifying the use of violence to address cases of bullying in schools. And also noticed a strong correlation between these appeals to violence and issues related to race and gender. I found some content glorifying terrorists and serial killers, in some cases even like producing memes or Disney-like features, like Disney-like animations, as if these murders committed by these individuals were like Disney animations. And we also conducted a qualitative research with students from Brazil, and they told us that this contact with this sort of material is normal, and that it actually normalized violence to them. They have been so much in contact with this kind of material, including, for instance, simulations of torture on video games, recorded and shared on TikTok. They've seen these so frequent that for them, this kind of violence is somehow normal. Here are some pictures of some of these content that I found. So the first one is a simulation of torture. I found these many times. We have like deep fakes showing victims describing their death. This is a very disturbing type of deep fake. So they create deep fakes that showing like the victims going over the details in which they were killed. The third one here shows a man giving instructions on which weapons students could bring to school and go unnoticed. And the fourth one, representations of serial killer and terrorists as heroes here, dialoguing with these aesthetics that we find in Disney animations. And here is a quote from one of the students that we interviewed. I grew up watching videos of extreme violence on the internet. Although I've never harmed any people, these videos have affected the way I see the world, and I believe they have desensitized me to all grotesque and disturbing things. Obviously, this is a research that I conducted focused on Brazil, but some content was in English, some content was praising jihadist terrorism, some content was in Russian. So I tend to think that it is a global trend that certainly deserves more attention. The second one is related to my field of expertise, conspiracy theories and the digital politics of truth of the far right. And the trend is that algorithms have facilitated the wide circulation of stigmatizing conspiracy theories as scientific truth, which is deeply problematic, and I'll explain why. So conspiracy theories are narratives that offer an explanation for complex events, but it is an explanation that makes sense. It is an explanation that reduces the complexity of certain events to an antagonism between good and bad. Some conspiracy theories, they are especially harmful, especially when it comes to human rights, because they stigmatize some segments of the population, okay? I call these conspiracy theories paranoid style stigmatizing conspiracy theories because they construct this antagonism between good and bad, and they activate a sort of crusade mentality, prompting some individuals to take action against other people based on their race, based on their color, based on their ethnicity, based on their religion, and sometimes based on their gender and sexuality. The main problem when we have these conspiracy theories performed and widely circulated as truth is that people tend to engage with them as if it was really like knowledge, scientific knowledge. And what we have is we have terrorist attacks, we have people publicly displaying racism, xenophobia, sexism. We have efforts to educate children from a racist, conspiratorial perspective. This material here is currently circulating in England. We have violent attacks like the ones that we've seen in the riots in the UK in July. And we have shaming campaigns, and we also have explicit attempts to undermine democracy like the ones that we've seen in the US and Brazil. I won't have time to go over this with detail, but here it is evidence that these conspiracy theories that clearly undermine human rights have widely circulated across different digital platforms, and they are amplified by algorithms. So these platforms are constantly recommending this content to the viewers. Here it is another example how they are shared. So I found those videos on YouTube and BitChute, and those videos containing this authoritative performance of conspiracy theories have been circulated across these platforms, and once again, on multiple languages. The third trend that I would like to highlight, just to conclude, is related to generative AI. So what happens now with generative AI? So I noticed two trends. The first one, we have generative AI being used to create these images that openly incite hate towards minorities. This one I found on a research that I'm conducting right now about the relationship between AI and the far-right riots in the UK. And I found this image shared by different X accounts. It achieved a considerable number of reaches, and it raised the question about what can we do, how can we address this problem. The second trend, which is deeply disturbing, is that we have some individuals and groups producing Disney-like animations to openly incite hate towards some segments of the population. This one here, as you can see, educational purposes, is the official trailer of a so-called movie that romanticizes the Holocaust. This main character here is Hitler. This video I found on YouTube. And the way that I found it was that because it became viral first at TikTok, and then it migrated to YouTube. So yeah, this is all from me now. If you want to know more about my research, just scan the QR code, and that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beatriz. Please stay with us online while the other panelists have short presentations for the discussion in a little bit. Can we please show the presentation now? Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Monique Munarini, and I promise I'm not showing off Italian, we just agreed to announce it in such manner. PhD candidate in AI for Society at the University of Pisa. Monique is a qualified lawyer and policy analyst whose research focuses on equity-based approach to AI compliance and governance. Monique, we are delighted to have you. Please join us on stage.
Hello everyone, I will try to be very brief, and I like to thank the keynote speakers because they did an amazing job, and you can see that I will be repeating some things, so I'll try to skip them. So my talk is about AI equity and human rights, as I've been working on equity in my PhD research, but also as policy analyst. Well, let's talk about numbers. I like to start every talk with this. This is a graph from Ricardo Vinuesa team, and they assess the impact of AI in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030. And what is interesting is side A, you can see the potential, the positive impact of AI on achieving SDGs, and you can see that we have like some good numbers here. But then when it comes to the negative impact on SDG 10, for example, that's achieving gender equality, the negative impact can be up to 70%. And of course, this is not an isolated case. We've seen some examples here previously, and I'm not, so I will be more, as Paola said, more techno-optimist today, but I really like, and I could stay here 5 minutes just talking about cases where AI went bad and violated fundamental rights. But this case really, I think is really important because this is a study did in 2021 by Algorithm Watch, so after GDPR. And what they found is that at this time, Facebook, on their job optimization tool, they were showing different job advertisements to different users. So for example, truck driver advertisements were more shown to men, where childcare worker positions were more shown to women. And then this comes the question that Tamara shared, like, how can you say that your right was violated if you didn't even know? Like, how can you say that you were discriminated against if you didn't have the chance to apply for a position because this position wasn't shown to you? And I can summarize this talk in like 3 main issues that I think it's important for us to highlight, and the previous keynote speakers, they did an amazing job already touching this, this topic. Of course, we know AI hype, that everything now is AI related, but I really like to mention this issue that it's called techno-solutionism. It's not because AI is something mainstream now that we need to use AI. So techno-solutionism is the idea of we need to put technology in everything because we're failing as society. So we need to use technology because technology is more impartial, whereas we as humans, we are partial. We need to use technology because this is more market valuable. Then, of course, this is connected to the issues of bias that they already mentioned here, and how, like, we as humans, we are biased, and how, like, AI systems, they can inherit these biases. And, of course, the issues of ethics washing, where, like, international actors, people developing and deploying AI systems, they try to make this ethical alignment, but these end up with a checklist that has, like, not very meaningful impact. And this come up like another wave of ethics washing. But how can we solve this, right? I said that I would be like techno-optimism. On my research, I'm working with equity, and I think it was very interesting what in the table that Paola shared, how like having this human rights-based approach is difficult because we have struggles with like definitions and how like to make things concrete. I'm a lawyer by training, and I'm doing my PhD in computer science. Have you ever tried to like be on the same project, a lawyer, a philosopher, a policymaker, and a computer science person? It's really difficult, like starting for like even definition of topics. So I'm working to equity from a feminist perspective, and this is the definition I came up with. And one of important topic that you can see is how like this definition has belonging as one of the key aspects. And this comes with the talk of the ambassador, how like AI is a different sort of technology, because this is not just something that you apply to achieve some results. This is like in the heart of society. It's what we call like, this is a techno-social system, because it's not just data and algorithm. It's like also how you are deploying the system and how you are training the system and shaping the results and shaping the society that we will see today. And now being more optimist, and how like can we deal with like bias, techno-solutionism, and ethics washing. So this first is about, and I'm sorry if I'm sort of going not against, but like, let's say a different focus. I wouldn't say that we need to have like this human-centered approach of AI systems. We need to have this human right-centered approach. And why I'm saying about human right-centered approach that also Paola mentioned, because when we talk about human-centered AI, well, men are shown as being like the default human, and this excludes a lot of like the population. So when you have like a human rights-centered population, we are more inclusive, and as Tamara said, leaving no one behind, and that's the idea. And with this idea of having a human rights-centered approach, we need also to bring AI global governance. We cannot just have one part of the world regulating and saying how the rest of the world should regulate AI, should develop AI, and should implement AI systems. And one of the examples, and I found really interesting that Montenegro recently signed, is the Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence. That's the only binding document in AI global governance. Also, the UK signed this document, and I think this is the way forward. This is how we can, because AI is a cross-border issue, right? You develop AI in one country, you implement in another, and the effect can be felt in another country. So we need to have this global governance initiative so everyone can sit on the table and discuss this issue. The second one, of course, there's all this like, oh, if we regulate AI, this can stifle innovation. And we need to have to think about like how like industries can they develop AI systems in a way that is like reliable and responsible. And I really like I heard like, this in a presentation of this IACTAS project that is like EU Horizon funded project, but it's also on the implementation of the Council of Europe AI Treaty. That's the question zero. So instead of thinking of how can we develop like responsible and reliable AI systems, first, let's ask if we actually need this AI system. So is this necessary to achieve this solution? Is the impact of this AI system would be more pervasive than the possible positive outcomes? And then the second thing is like, also Paula really mentioned, well, it's about like participatory research. So how can we meaningfully include like affected people? And as Beatriz mentioned, it's not just like protected categories, not just women and people with disabilities, something that sometimes feels like very abstract. So, and this is an example of the Gender Rights in Tech, that's an African-based association, that they developed like this Zizi, that's a chatbot, to answer some questions about domestic violence abuse. And the most interesting thing about this project is that it was developed by women who face domestic violence. So the association, they went to ask them about like, okay, what were the questions that you would use this app for? Because sometimes if you are like in a vulnerable position, sometimes you feel ashamed to share this with another human, and then you rely on a technology. And well, you see a lot of people like use ChatGPT for everything now. But this is like a way of doing this in a meaningful participatory way. So like, and constantly asking their feedback, if the language was okay, if the replies were okay. And I think that's the way forward, because it's not just about, and we were talking about like participatory washing of like, okay, let's have a workshop here, get some feedback, and that's done. No, that's not it. Like, that's how like you can meaningfully have this, like listen to these people and have them within the development and deployment of AI systems. And to conclude, also AI literacy, how like you can take informed decisions of not just like choosing to use the AI system, of how like this can be impacting you as well. And then you can move forward from this like community engagement of like how we can meaningfully see like seek advice from society, and how like we as society can contribute to development of AI system, because we might not be like at Microsoft or Amazon or Google, but we can still like take our position to see, okay, this might be wrong, or I might be being affected by an AI system outcome. And then this can lead to community empowerment. This is like one of the EU Horizon project that I'm collaborating with, and they are having a masterclass on AI used in recruitment process. So if companies are using like already a lot of AI systems for hiring and decision-making process, and this is one of the initiatives that is trying to bring like this community empowered of like, okay, let's share knowledge and gain knowledge so then we can be all empowered. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Just the screen, please. Anyhow, the screen will be fixed in a moment. I'm pleased now to announce Angela Kellett, Head of Insights in the UK Cabinet Office, our next panelist. Angela has over 25 years of experience in research and program management, supporting international partners with insights and media analysts. Angela, we will welcome you shortly, just to have the screen fixed so you can start the presentation. Yeah, here we go. Please, round of applause for Angela.
Great, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this conference today. As was mentioned, I work in the communications service within the Cabinet Office, and today I'm going to tell you about two projects that we're working on. One in the field of mis and disinformation, and secondly, how we're using AI and thinking about AI in both this space and within communications. Starting with the UK disinformation mapping and the project. We're working on two new products. We have a framework in the UK government called Resist, and this is a framework that helps us think about mis and disinformation, how we can identify, triage and respond to these aspects. We're updating this framework. This framework was developed last and updated last in 2021, and since then there's been a number of changes, most notably in the fields of AI, but also how we understand information operations, how we understand trust in public communications, much more. So it's very much needed that we update this framework. So watch this space, and we hope, if we're successful, to have it published early next year. We're also developing a playbook for how we think about mis and disinformation and information operations from a communications perspective. This is very much been a plan, a long-term plan that we've been working on, understanding that different parts of the UK government, different departments have been working on this for a long time, but thinking about how we can bring it together more effectively. The riots that we had in the summer very much brought this very much to the top of our ministers' and our leaders' agenda, very much helped us to think about how we can make this more effective, how we can reach target and vulnerable audiences much more quickly and much more effectively when we need to respond in a crisis, and how we can be ready with our early warning systems to identify mis, disinformation and information operations. So just to show you here just how some of the ways that we're thinking about it. So on the left-hand side, we have the potential foreign interference and manipulation in the information environment, as well as domestic information operations. So we have a number of sort of open source analysis to identify what's going on. And here very much we thinking about AI, thinking about where we see artificial amplification with bots, and how this is manipulating the information environment. We also want to understand more broadly in the information environment, and on the right, just understanding what narratives are circulating, what people are consuming, what they're understanding, and together this helps to build our early warning system. We then think about all the different communications responses that we might need. We see that rarely rebutting is often not always, or not very often, the right approach, because that can actually just amplify the original content. So there's a lot more long-term approaches that we're working on. This can include public information and awareness raising, citizen resilience building campaigns so that people can identify misdisinformation themselves, understand what might be a deep fake, what might be AI generated. The third strand is very much about how we build our own trust in public communications, how we can strengthen that. And fourthly, how we can develop counter-brand campaigning so that we can sometimes expose where we're seeing certain manipulation in our information environment. This is a info checklist that was co-developed with the PM office here in Montenegro with the Ministry of Culture and Media, Ministry of Education and the British Embassy on media literacy. So this is one example of a kind of campaign that we might do in the UK and one that's being done here in Montenegro. Other communications responses that may happen in the moment. Well, one response is no response, monitoring only. Sometimes you just have to let things play out, and it's about watching it very closely, seeing the trajectory that it's on. Debunking, if you want to expose and counter it with the risks I mentioned just now. Counter narrative, thinking about how you think about that narrative and how you say what's right, and not necessarily referring to the harmful content, but putting out an alternative narrative. Sometimes it's policy response communications, emphasise a policy lever. In the riots, as it moved on in the UK, the policy communications response was to talk about the impact of the riots, what the kind of penalty would be if you got involved in the riots, rather than at that stage talking about the original disinformation itself. And then in crisis communications, how we make sure we have a steady drumbeat of authoritative communications. So disinformation and AI, we've sort of very much like, as well as been said, sort of very much thought about how we get people to think about AI, get people to think about AI in their everyday lives. And the first time I saw this, I thought, oh, this is quite interesting, because I've been talking about AI and been to lots of talks on AI. I never really thought about my day is filled with AI in such a obvious way. For the moment I wake up and my phone uses biometrics, right through to how on my social media, what it's given me, what EdTech's given me, how my online shopping is done by AI and what I watch in Netflix. And then one of the projects that we have in the UK government is around looking at a large language model and developing a large language model within the communications area of our government to build an LLM, which is called Assist in the UK government, to be able to have our models on there, to be able to kind of use it ourselves to make our communications more effective. And the reason why our own LLM was developed was to ensure ethics, transparency, data protection, data privacy, a number of things were all kind of properly handled and managed, and the sort of that side of it was very important. And then we thought about how can AI help us in the workplace. So very much as communications, we looked at how it can increase productivity by automating some of our tasks, allow us to spend more time being creative and problem solving, open up new possibilities. It's very much has sped up some of our communications planning. It's helped with creating personalized communications, and it's helped us with large data sets to evaluate communications quicker and do more real-time analysis and adaptation. One example that I wanted to share was an issue that we had or was identified within the Ministry of Defence around high attrition rates for ethnic minorities and female candidates in the recruitment stage. So there was a lot of analysis that showed high dropout data. And the research showed that there was a number of barriers that were being found to attracting these candidates and retaining these candidates. So a new AI conversation tool was used, and this addressed specific concerns head on, and was used to be able to engage with candidates. And then it was sort of had a number of key areas that they knew were problems or were issues or things that would be discussed to be able to help candidates respond. So it enabled greater participation, greater accessibility. How is some of the AI tool like Assist developed? So first of all, starting with kind of identifying what needs to be done, prediction what the need is, what the ambition is. The third part, safeguards. This slide was given to me by our innovation team, and they said, make sure you talk about the ethical side, the data privacy side, and all those aspects, which a number of people have alluded to today. It was almost quite scary, and then I heard the talks today and thought, oh, that's why, because it's so important. I knew it was important, but yeah, just they told me that that must be emphasised. The principles and the tools that were there. So it was very much tested, first of all. People were trained on how to use it, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, the limitations of it, how we keep improving it, and then the tool was developed. So this was the tool that came out. And then finally, just to end with like the case study of how this AI tool helped people. One example was in crisis communications. So our national security risk assessment has comms plans against it. And there was a lot that needed to be developed very quickly. So what was developed was a framework that could be used in crisis communications planning. And this was built into the large language model so that a draft could be produced rapidly based on any crisis that could give comms ideas, recommendations, targeting audiences. And the result was that it increased from 31% of most serious risks to 70% in just 4 weeks. So it was seen as a great time saver. It was also seen as identifying areas that they hadn't thought of. There was still a human element to review them all, and there still were some limitations, but it was found overall as a great time saver and very effective. So finally, just to conclude, just wanted to share with you today how in the space of mis and disinformation and AI, within our projects, we're trying to understand how it's being used so that we know ourselves what we need to understand. We need to try and keep up, which obviously we're all struggling to do, but understand how in information operations, mis and disinformation and AI is being used together, but also to think about how we can use AI in communications, so how we can use it more effectively to really engage wider accessibility, to really reach out to people, to analyse large data sources, so that we can be more effective in the work that we're doing. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Angela. It is now my pleasure to introduce you the fourth panelist, Alison Saylor, a research assistant and psychologist at the NHS. Alison specializes in community mental health and evaluation project, bringing a unique perspective to the intersection of technology and human well-being. Alison, please.
Hello, my name is Alison Saylor, and I'm really extremely grateful to be here. It's a little bit surreal for me, if I'm honest, but I've really enjoyed everybody's presentation so far, and I found everything very engaging and thought-provoking. So I just want to introduce a little bit the mental health side of things. I forgot I have to click on my presentation. Oh, sorry. Click. I think I have to click this first. You can tell I did not create this with AI, sorry. Okay. So the title of my presentation is the neurodiversity movement, exploring the intersection of mind and digital innovation. Just to share briefly about my background, I obtained my master's in counseling, also did a degree in psychology at Bangor University in the UK. I currently work for the National Health Service of England. I work as a therapist and a research assistant currently in adult community mental health. What is neurodivergence? Neurodivergence highlights the natural variation in human brain function and behavior. It encompasses conditions such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and others. And it challenges the belief that there is a normal way of thinking or behaving. The term was first created by an Australian sociologist, I believe, in the 90s, and it's been gaining popularity, particularly in Western mental health contexts, both as a framework for understanding neurodevelopmental conditions and as an advocacy movement. And by the way, about 15 to 20% of the population are considered to be neurodivergent. So let's look at a few examples. We have a 10-year-old male who's frustrated by small changes and usually plays alone. Maybe he's labeled difficult or antisocial. A 12-year-old female daydreams and is disorganized in school. She doesn't really respond to teachers or parents putting pressure on her. Nothing seems to change. She's called lazy or a bad student. A 25-year-old female is easily overwhelmed by stress, sensitive, and always follows the rules. She's been like this her whole life, and she might be called dramatic or rigid, but she also might be called a good girl. Recognizing neurodiversity is vital for addressing mental health stigma. So rather than lazy, difficult, or dramatic, what if these labels are really traits of undiagnosed autism, ADHD, or dyslexia? And while it is true that diagnosis can also carry a stigma, what if these labels are not just symptoms, but different ways of processing the world? And if you're familiar with any of the people in these pictures, two of which are fictional and one is a real person, you might recognize that maybe they have a mixture of strengths and challenges. Maybe some of their strengths are high intelligence, such as in the case of Mr. Elon Musk, who was diagnosed with Asperger's, or maybe endearing impulsivity in the case of Maria von Trapp from The Sound of Music, whose ADHD traits, I believe, are highlighted in the song How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria? So this opens up a more inclusive view that perhaps neurodivergence for some people is not just a diagnosis, but also an identity. Touching a little bit on the research and clinical side of things, we looked at the 25-year-old female who's easily overwhelmed by stress, who's sensitive, always follows the rules. So psychologists are gaining a better understanding of neurodiverse adults who are considered to be high functioning, or some people might say low support needs. And one example is autism in females, which has resulted in a wave of late diagnosed adults. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, check out the female autism checklist, and there's other good resources on oxfordcbt.co.uk. There's also been some good papers highlighting the autistic female experience and how this can be understood or misunderstood by others. In a clinical setting, this information matters because evidence suggests that neurodivergent labels can have the unique power of validating struggles without stigma. For example, in my own work as a therapist in adult community mental health, some of my female service users have also been diagnosed with things like bipolar and borderline personality disorder. Now, my disclaimer is that I don't have training in diagnosis. That's not what I do, but I do work with a multidisciplinary team, so we discuss these things. And I also can pick up traits sometimes based on my familiarity with the topic and the reading that I've done. And so some of these people that I've worked with were later assessed and diagnosed with autism and ADHD. which was not picked up on when they were children due to the lack of information back then. And this information has been extremely helpful to them for developing more self-compassion and not being so hard on themselves. And this awareness can also empower neurodivergent people to ask for reasonable accommodations, for example, when there's sensory needs, such as adjusting the lighting in the room, as simple as that sounds, that can make a huge difference. Adjusting for written or verbal communication, and appointment reminders if they need some help staying organized. So we all know that language matters, but beyond the therapeutic benefits of language, there are ongoing studies on the validity of neurodivergence as a transdiagnostic spectrum of traits. So not only do we have some changes to the diagnostic criteria in the ICD and the DSM, but some psychologists are becoming actually less interested in diagnostic categories and more so in spotting the traits in order to actually assess and meet people's needs. And here's a good paper about that if you're interested. So tying it into the power of social media and technology, technology facilitates the dissemination of information about neurodiversity and allows for greater visibility of neurodivergent experiences. Social media platforms can create space for sharing experiences and finding support, countering isolation often felt by neurodivergent individuals. For example, there are many helpful Instagram and TikTok accounts created by neurodivergent lay people and professionals who may highlight lesser known experiences and ask good questions about the issues that we should investigate further. So there's many different viewpoints on this. I know that my view is not the only one. People may sort of have other perspectives, and all perspectives are welcome on the issue. For example, some people might be concerned about the potential downsides to technology and how algorithms, for example, target and influence people. Misinformation, knowing which sources to trust is always a concern, as well as maybe the misapplication of information. So for example, if somebody runs to the doctor saying their finger hurts, or they go to Google, for example, instead of the doctor, and they have 3 different types of incurable cancer, according to Dr. Google, this sort of thing might happen too in mental health. And there might also be people who label seek for a sense of belonging or maybe avoidance of personal responsibility. In conclusion, technology is reshaping our understanding of mental health and what it means to be neurodivergent. Technology is also helping to acknowledge the validity of individual differences and needs. It's giving people a voice, sometimes literally and also democratically, by raising awareness. And future research might consider investigating how individuals make sense of the neurodivergent information that they access via technology, such as social media. How do they sift through the information, evaluate the content, and decide what to do with that information? And this also raises the question about how can we utilize new technologies to support the neurodivergent movement. I think it's actually very interesting, since technology such as AI has likely been created by neurodivergent individuals themselves, and I would like to imagine that maybe the birth of AI has somehow filled a gap in what maybe they thought they were missing from the world, which is maybe order from chaos. And at the same time, this was accomplished through their neurodivergent strengths, through maybe pattern recognition and other forms of intelligence. So from a mental health perspective, maybe this technology could also be applied to developing emotional intelligence through pattern recognition, through thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, which could assist some people who have difficulty with that. So that's sort of where my expertise on AI stops. But I'll open the floor, for discussion later if anybody wants to share their ideas for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Now I will hand over the discussion to our moderator, Ivana, and I believe it's a Friday afternoon after a long week, or for me, I can speak in my name, but please, it's a rare opportunity having these incredible professionals here with us, so do not hesitate asking any questions. Thank you. Ivana.
Thank you everyone also for your attention. I saw that it was really present during all speeches of the panelists. We have by the agenda only 15 minutes. I would like to share my personal, just the feeling that I'm really deeply touched with all of your presentations. When Beatrice was talking about the research on TikTok, it's something that we can all relate with, and we have all witnessed it, especially if you have small kids as I do, and it is really disturbing. So as she said, it's going to be disturbing. It was. When Monique was talking about the techno-solutionism, I also felt connected with that and with the ethic washing a lot. Being also educated formally and informally as both human rights activist and a bit of tech person, so I can understand that part, and I think it's over-present, and it's not only present in AI, but in many other topics. And I like when you said that men are perceived as a default human.
It is.
Also talking about the disinformation and manipulation of the narratives, and how I like when you show that slide that we are all actually, our lives are all shaped by the AI and technology today. It's not only of us as an adults, but of our babies and children and everyone and all humans that has access to digital world. And I'm very passionate about this, what Alison was, I feel, because I don't have almost any information regarding the movement, but I feel like it's really so relevant to talk about it and connect it with the new technology and AI. But because we have only 15 minutes, I have prepared some questions, but I think it's better if you from the if you other participants of this conference would have any, and I'm sure that you have many. So this is going to be the who is first would be served first. So please feel invited to ask questions. Dennis, would you like to ask? So just raise your hand if you have. Yes, of course.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Hello everyone, thank you so much for this amazing evening. I feel like I have so many questions, and every single one of you has, I don't know, just touched so many interesting things that I would like to discuss like next 5 hours probably, but since we are probably all tired, I have a question actually for Angela. Is it Angela, right? Yeah. I was interested when you said that you are kind of monitoring these misinformation campaigns, and are you actually monitoring? That's the first question. And if we are talking about people wanting to understand what kind of narratives are being served to the UK audiences or UK public on social media through different campaigns, is there an idea to make them known, to kind of expose them in a way? I feel like with the protests during the summer, people were kind of so surprised by the fire that spread all over social media, but it would be interesting to figure out how these campaigns are all over social media around us, and how they are maybe influencing us in a way that we are not even aware that much, not as extreme as this one. So yeah, maybe I'll just start with that question.
Would you like to answer now, so we can then also
Yes, sure.
another question?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll try and answer it as best I can in a short way. In terms of mis and disinformation and what we're doing to monitor, I I guess there's a number of different things going on. One side is very much the sort of foreign interference, manipulation, monitoring, and this is very much sort of a open source. There's a lot of tools, etc., to be monitoring those. It's looking very much at sort of tactics, techniques, procedures, and understanding kind of what channels are being used, what tactics are being used. So it's quite a sort of strategic look rather than a narrative look necessarily, to understand what's going on. The type of response that might be to that is a whole range of responses, depending on the nature of what's been found. One response, as you said, could be to expose that tactic, whether it's a sort of counter brand or a counter narrative, etc. There's a number of other responses that can be considered, some of which is working with, say, the sites, if it's in breach of a site's terms and conditions, to kind of flag to them that it's in breach. So a number of other ways. So there's kind of overall monitoring of the information environment to understand, particularly around key moments like elections, or around certain summits, or certain, if there's a crisis or a trigger, to kind of monitor for the overall narrative. What are people seeing? What are they consuming? And then on the other side, there's kind of analysing domestic information operations, foreign interference, to see, to make sure that we understand, stay on top of it, and think about what the right policy together with communications response might be.
Thank you so much. Please.
Hello, my name is Alexander, and I have a question for Alison. I think, if I remember correctly, sorry, I'm really bad with names. So I'm sure you've heard about a platform called BetterHelp. And recently there were a lot of accusations about how they replaced their therapist with AI agents that were talking to the patients. Thank you. I was missing a word. Sorry. Do you think that at this point in time, AI has developed enough to be able to offer some sort of help for people? And what are your thoughts on that? Is it ethical for AI to be in a position where it is interacting with a human in such a way? Do you think that, and it's going to be my last sub-question, I promise. And do you think that it is ethical? Sorry, that's the one I said. Let's stop there, yeah. Sorry. My ADHD is kicking in, so it's like.
Excellent. Can they hear me? They can hear. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. That's something that I've thought about a lot, and I probably don't have like a clear-cut answer for you because I have mixed feelings about it myself. I'm not sure about data protection around AI. That's not my expertise. I would be concerned about that if somebody's inputting, like sensitive, confidential information. I don't know, like if AI is able to protect that or not. You might want to ask, somebody else sitting next to me about that. But yeah, I think honestly, I want whatever helps people, and so I don't have like an ego about it. At least I try not to have an ego about it. And if somebody says that AI has helped them therapeutically, then all the power to AI and them for working together. It'd be interesting to do research on that. I don't know what research is out there in terms of like, impacting on therapeutic outcomes. That might be the next thing to look into. But that's a really good question. Thank you.
Can I comment on the ethical aspect? So there's a famous case called Eliza that was a chatbot created by Weisbaum, and it happens. This is the first example of like a chatbot. And of course, at the time, it wasn't named AI, but it was so human-like that people started to get advices from it, and then it turns out that Weisbaum became one of the biggest like ethicists criticizing AI systems, saying that AI couldn't replace these sort of psychological help. Of course, we are talking about like before ChatGPT and generative AI, but there is this huge concern, of course. At the same time, it's like with great powers comes great responsibilities. And of course, it might help a lot of people, but also brings a lot of questions of what would be the possible side B. So if you're interested to check, I think that's a good way to start on this research on ELIZA, because this is where even chatbots started. And it's exactly this case of like asking advice for like a human-like agent. So.
Thanks so much for your presentation.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Did I turn this on? Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Snežana Nikčević. I'm from 35mm. Thank you, everybody, for these amazing presentations. I'm really happy that this kind of topic is discussed. I actually have one question for Monique, I would say, and also perhaps for Paula as well, because they were like more in like policy data sort of conversation that you were talking about. One of the things that we are facing here, for example, first and foremost in the region in general, but also here in Montenegro, is actually the diversification of the data we collect. So we lack different sorts of data that we would feed into algorithms first and foremost, especially since we are a really small country. And then like we actually lack like updating of methodologies, but also other frameworks that are prerequisitive for the AI treaty. I'm really loving the fact that you actually highlighted this, like AI treaty that we signed. It's really awesome, but like, for example, we still don't have law adapted in line with GDPR and a lot of other things. Also, the region didn't have an option to opt out of AI trainings with Meta, let's say. All of these sorts of things that are surrounding, let's say, AI implementation, although like innovative ecosystem is really, really much better, but when it comes to the public administration in general and e-services that are provided, we see different sorts of cases in which, for example, especially when talking about vulnerable groups and marginalized groups, this can be really, really, let's say, it goes wrong. In Serbia, for example, we have social card example, which is, I think, a really good example what happens. They're collecting over 130 data, personal data. But what happened is like all of these services, social services of vulnerable groups, through algorithmic, let's say, validation, became really problematic because the law, like the process itself, wasn't reformed. So I was just actually have a question in which, like, do you know of any examples like of similar cases through your research and how this was like concretely countered, so we can actually come up with some sort of, let's say, recommendation that we can actually, or to look into here as a region or Montenegro in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I start first and then you can complement? I think that's very interesting the way you started about like the diversity of data, because as Paula mentioned, the amount of women in AI research, and this is not only a technical issue, it's not just about putting more data. Because if you think like historical bias, so one of the biggest cases of like AI discrimination is the Amazon case, that Amazon developed this AI system to screen CVs, and then in one of their auditings they found that the system was eliminating women's CV because the system understood that Amazon didn't want to hire women because their historical CVs that was trained, the system was trained was like mostly from men, because the 10 previous years of CVs of Amazon, it wasn't very diverse. So then the system understood that Amazon didn't want to hire women. But then when we see like the situation in Iran, for example, that the situation now is way worse than it was before, then we can see that the historical data might be something helpful. So the situation was way more, let's say, helpful for women. So it's not, and as I tried to mention in my presentation, like we need this social technical approach. It's not just like having more data, but also like diverse teams, and how like can you, of course this is in a long term, so like how can we ask, we have people that are asking these questions on these teams. And I have like many examples of like how this being implemented in like a governance level, but I don't have like on a country, specific country example, but one that I suggest you to check is the South Africa National AI Strategy, because I think it's one of the few that I've seen that they are like really trying to see like from the past what happened and what they want to achieve in the future. And then of course many like corporations or even like startups that they are using this idea of, it's not just about bringing more women or more diverse people, it's about like really incorporating them on the decision-making process. So then you can have more diverse data, so then you can have less problematic and discriminatory outcomes. So, Paola.
for the question. I might provide a different perspective so it can complement the answer that Monique provided in a very well manner. Thank you, Monique. So first, I mentioned, and I truly believe, data is the oxygen of AI. So we get into this struggle when we say we need more diverse data, but we want our privacy to be protected. So how can we do this, right? Actually, there is a very recent report published by UNESCO. You might want to read it. It's about synthetic AI data. And it discusses how synthetic data is now being used as a solution to bring more diverse voices, let's say voices, into the LLMs, right? This brings challenges because I have not read research that prove that it is really bridging the gap. But it's an interesting source that I invite you to read. I've been reading it in the airplane on my way here. It's an interesting report that UNESCO wrote. This is one thing. Second, I join Monique in this answer. I have not seen any country developing a good case that I say this is the golden example, unfortunately. But what I like to say is, as society, we can make actions. For instance, and this is all about trust when using AI solutions, right? So let's be very cautious with the companies. And maybe we cannot run all the due diligence that it should be done. Everyday consumers will not do it, but follow people that care about it, and we post about it. Like, for instance, I've posted on LinkedIn some time ago a difference between the privacy policies that OpenAI has and Anthropic, the creator of Claude. And one very simple example that you get with ChatGPT is, by default, your data trains the system. While, on the other hand, Anthropic does not do that. By default, they do not train with your data. Another example, after 30 days, Anthropic deletes your data. OpenAI will not do it, never. But you can do it. You can change this default setting. But of course, I'm not saying all the responsibility should be on consumers, not at all. But and that's our job, civil society. We have NGOs. We need to advocate with UNESCO, with governments, to start changing that through regulatory frameworks. But in the meantime, let's make noise on social media. So this makes people more aware, and they stop using these technologies that are actually misusing it. So that could be my recommendation at the moment. And if there is somebody here developing an AI system, we don't need to wait for Montenegro to approve a GDPR, equal or similar law. We can have AI governance or privacy policies that are respectful. So we don't need to wait for this regulation. I'm a lawyer. I know this is necessary, but we can do it on our own, and we can be one step ahead.
We can take one more question. Masha?
Hi again. So maybe this is a bit connecting to the previous question, but I just wanted to put it out there because I think it's very interesting. So I'm really interested in this field of what AI can do in terms of therapy, new approaches, how it can be used to help people. And Alison, you have already answered on some of your opinions on that. But what I hear from some circles of psychologists is that, like in, I don't know how many, 5, 10 years, that there will be no need for psychologists because we will be able to train AI models on like how many, 20,000 variations on different talks that we can have with people, and that's it. So I just want to hear, maybe it's an overstatement, of course, but I really wanted to hear your opinion on that. That's the first part of the question. And the second is, I mean, already with technology, we are becoming distant from each other. I think that's going to be way more amplified with AI. What do you think? Maybe that's a question for all of you, including Beatrice, who is online with us. What do you think can be done on personal level, on community level? Is it this something that can be thought of even in the policy making level right now, or is it too early? Because I think that, but this is all, I mean, speaking from personal experience and talking with people who are knowledgeable, I think that we can already see some consequences, but probably the consequences of technology being making people more distant. So can we do something about it now, or is it something that should be, is it something that is not mature yet, to put it that way? Hope it's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. We can start from Alison and every panelist that would like to join and complement the answer, please.
Well, I think that picture is very depressing. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I thank you, by the way, for mentioning the case of Eliza, because I forgot about that. But I hope we don't get to that point. And if we do, we really need to figure out, why does everybody need a therapist? Because I love my job, but
yeah.
I hope that actually people don't need therapy as much. And I don't know, what to do about that culturally, societally, I don't know. But I think that definitely what's lacking in AI is the human connection, and we are social creatures, I believe. And there's something that can't really, psychology is, it is a social science, like it's a soft science in a way, because, we can measure certain things, and you can come up with, therapeutic approaches and formulations that target, distress, but there's also something that can't be measured in the human connection, and even like research has a hard time measuring that too. And sometimes that's really what makes the difference, I think, also in my personal experience. And I don't know if AI can do that. I mean, maybe, but I just feel like that's just a very utopian or dystopian thing to imagine. So I hope we don't get to that point. That's it from me.
Thank you.
Would like to join?
Yeah, I guess just reflecting on the point about AI and human connection, what we do. I guess on a positive angle, if possible, then I guess the hope is that AI will make us more efficient, more effective in a number of areas that actually frees up time, hopefully to do things that require human connection, require us coming together, giving us space for creativity and other things. But that's the positive angle, not a balanced answer.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to be like a techno solutionist here, but I think when everyone says like, oh, AI will replace my job, and like you say, like all therapists, they won't exist anymore because of AI. I think that there are still two things that AI cannot replace. One is empathy, and the other one is creativity. So when we talk about, of course, I'm a lawyer by training, and I know that there are a lot of like AI system used in the legal system. So there are many things that AI can help us as a tool. And I was even talking with an artist that is using AI as a tool to improve his job. But he says like, AI will never be able to think as I think, because I don't think that AI can think at the first place. But then in the sense of like healthcare, education, you name it, AI cannot be empathetic and cannot be as creative as a human being will ever be. Okay, we can use AI tool to optimize our work, or to improve the tasks that we need to do, or the repetitive activities that sometimes is just boring, that we need to click and stuff. Okay, that's one thing, but there are some things that cannot be automated. So that's my...
Can I?
Thank you so much, Beatrice.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would just add something there, because I think that you mentioned it's very paradoxical that these digital technologies, at the same time that they have facilitated communication, they have also set us apart. And I am not very optimistic about this because there is a global divide. The people who have the power over these technologies is a small segment of the population. We also have other psychological things there that I'm not going to delve into detail here, but in a nutshell, I think that the way in which we can build bridges instead of building walls it really requires a whole of society effort. So first, we need to have more conversations within our families. Parents need to talk to their children to understand what they are accessing on the internet. What are the videos that are trending? One of the most harmful videos that I found on TikTok, it was my son, a teenager, who suggested me. If he didn't tell me, I would not know what was the underlying message that was there. So we need to have these conversations. Schools, they need, I was very happy when I saw that the British government is keen to start investing in digital literacy programs because they're so much needed for a number of reasons. So yes, so schools, they need to educate children, adolescents on how they should engage with these tools, because this is another thing that all of us, we need to have in mind, that today we live in a society in which our affects, our engagement with these tools, they have been monetized. Even the time that we spent watching a video is already monetized. So there was somebody that was saying, oh, should we expose these people who are saying these things? Not necessarily, because by exposing, it's the same logics that we have when we are talking about terrorist activity. If we expose a terrorist, instead of shaming, we may be inciting other people to do the same. So this is one of those circumstances in which silence is a very powerful tool. And another thing is also regulation. We really need to have awareness campaigns. We need to have stricter regulations. Now that I'm working with this data related to the riots, I found many verified accounts on X reproducing this content. So they are clearly inciting hate. They are clearly violating the so-called community policies, and they are monetizing on that. So we really need to have a whole society effort here, everybody together on the same page, in order to prevent society from really like falling apart, which can have damaging implications, not only for human rights, but also for democracy. Who knows? So yeah, this is for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think that most of you have many questions that are not answered through this panel, as I have now much more than I had like 1 hour ago. And we will have now opportunity that is non-formal, where the point of this opportunity is to connect each other, to connect as a humans, and to have a human-centered conversations. So it was really, really an honor to sit with you and to be part of this panel and this day. I would like also to congratulate our host, Jovana, for being so good one. And would like to thank you all, and to of course invite you to join us tomorrow. We will, I promise, open many more questions, as this is obviously the topic that is not providing only solutions, but also providing many open challenges that we need to be aware of and that we need to tackle, but we need also to have many more people who are on this side and who are at the side of the human rights and who also understand tech. So with that, I would close this day and invite you to join us on the cocktail. Thank you so much.